In 1917, Francis Bullhead of Standing Rock shot his last arrow. It wasn't his arrow, it was one supplied by the Indian agent, along with a bow and a plow. These were props in a ceremony orchestrated by the government during and after World War I. Shooting the arrow and touching the plow symbolized the Indians had chosen to live the life of a white man. What the government called full citizenship and a land allotment awaited those who acted out this paternalistic ritual, supposedly forsaking their tribal ways. These many years later, from the vantage point of time, it's clear that tribal ways did not vanish. They may have been discouraged by the citizenship ceremony and banned in numerous other ways, but they did not die out. One of our great achievements as tribal people has been our success in maintaining our culture while adapting to the many changes thrust upon us by the government, churches, and schools. The change brought about by citizenship has marked tribal people ever since with a unique status. We have dual citizenship. We are citizens of the United States, and we are members and citizens of tribal nations.
This is a very high honor we hold. Ha, Jason Prettyboy, Amachiapi. And this video is about one of the privileges we enjoy. As citizens, we have the right to voice our vote in all elections.
Tribal people in North Dakota have a long tradition of participating in their government. Whether the tribe was led by bundle holders, or spiritual leaders, family headmen, or warrior groups. Decision-making involved the community. The people were asked to help make decisions, or people who value their relationships with others, taking time to collectively reach consensus assured harmony among people and groups in a community, and help prevent bad decisions. When tribes adopted constitutions and other forms of governing from the mainstream, tribal members held fast to the practice of being involved in decision-making. Tribal government is characterized by a high level of active and vocal participation. Regardless of whether they hold office, tribal members who voice their views are conducting themselves in the best traditions of group decision-making learned from past generations. As tribal people in North Dakota, we have not been as active in participating in mainstream government. Our voices have not been heard as much in the decision-making and elections of the state and the counties and cities where we live. Whether we like it or not, our lives and those of our children and grandchildren are directly affected by the way these governments work. Consider the American Indian men and women who have served in the military. They protect the flag of this nation, sometimes by giving their lives. Today, they serve in greater percentages, given our population, than any other group in the country. Their bravery and courage as warriors in the defense of freedom should stimulate our participation in voting, as a way to honor the sacrifice they make for all citizens in the country. Another reason for getting involved in government and voting in elections is because we have something to offer. Our history of participating in tribal decision-making has grounded us in the concepts of good citizenship.
Anyone that's participated in tribal government probably has a lot more knowledge about Robert's Rules of Order and processes and procedures. Native Americans in general know a hell of a lot more about the federal government than any other group, because people engaged in tribal government get that experience. So then you can take that same process and move it. Their experience maybe has been just the reservation, but what they don't know is that their experience probably is way beyond what the average white person has in any electoral process. So by all means, there's some real strengths in just the natural way that Native families have worked together over the years and how Indian politics works.
Today, there is more recognition than ever that tribal people count in elections. While North Dakota continues to experience the problem of outmigration, our native population is growing. With tribal people voting in elections, winning elective offices, and being appointed to boards, commissions, and committees, mainstream government will become more responsive to tribal needs.
I became aware, and have been aware for a long time, about the need for American Indian people to get involved with the voting process. You know, I was very concerned about the federal, and I was very concerned about tribe, but not very concerned about the state. And again, as I grew, as I became more learned about the situation, you know, there's all different levels of politics, and there's all different levels of leadership. And the deal that I came to have kind of thrust upon me was to engage the tribal colleges in being involved with the political action process, and that's voting.
This group of tribal college students is involved in learning about the voting process. It's part of the North Dakota Tribal Voter Education Project. The goal is to help tribal people around the state participate more fully and with greater ease in elections.
Why I'm here is to impress upon you the importance of voting. It's your duty to vote. It's not just a right and a privilege. It's your duty. It's just so important that you vote, and vote at all elections.
And they've learned to
These are nonpartisan voter education activities to strengthen awareness among tribal voters about legal voting requirements and new equipment. Tribal voters enjoy the same privilege as all citizens to voice their votes in local and state elections. Passage of HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, resulted in welcome improvements in the voting process.
This will be in every precinct in North Dakota. We're the first state in the country to be fully accessible with the AutoMark machine. This machine is just another option for folks that you can still use your write-in ballot, you can do your absentee ballot, or you can try this machine out.
Here's a summary of what to expect when voting. On Election Day, you visit your voting precinct, also known as your polling place. It's usually a school, church, or government building. Where you vote is based on where you live. You can find your polling site by looking at a map published in your newspaper, checking with the county auditor, or visiting the Secretary of State's website. At the polling place on Election Day, you need to have your ID ready. The poll workers will ask you to show it, only because they need to verify that you live in the precinct. North Dakota does not require voter registration. All that's required is to be age 18 or older and to have lived in the precinct at least 30 days prior to the election. On reservations where many people don't have a specified street address, it can be a challenge to verify where you live. A tribal ID card will work if it shows a residential street address. Other forms with an address are good too, like a driver's license or a student, state, federal, or military ID. You can use your utility bill or a change of address letter from the U.S. Postal Service to verify where you live. No eligible voter will be turned away due to lack of acceptable ID. The law allows an election worker to choose to vouch for you, or you can complete a voter's affidavit saying who you are and where you live. When you're set to vote, you'll receive a paper ballot that you mark in private, using a privacy booth. Nobody will know how you vote, and you don't have to tell. One thing to be sure of, completely darken the ovals, so your ballot can be read by a scanner. The scanner is one of the new devices you'll see. Using the privacy sleeve, you drop in your ballot and the scanner reads it, only for accuracy. The scanner tells you right away if there's an item to look at more closely, like too many votes cast for one office or no vote placed at all. You then have the right to make changes in your ballot. If you have questions, the poll workers are there to help you. If it turns out that you made a mistake on the ballot, no problem. You can have up to 2 new ballots to work with. If everything is good to go, your ballot is accepted and your votes are counted. Polling places also have what's known as an accessible voting device. This makes voting easier for those of all abilities. With its large screen and the ability to present the ballot orally, it's a helpful tool for those who were unable to cast ballots for themselves in the past. If you're unable to make it to your polling place on Election Day, you may vote by absentee ballot from the convenience of your home, if you plan ahead and contact the county auditor's office in advance. The rights of all voters are carefully protected under the law. When you go to vote, be assured that you can vote free from interference in a private and secret manner. Ask for and receive assistance in voting. Receive written instructions and, upon request, oral instructions in voting from election officers. You can cast your vote if you're in line at the official closing time of the polls. Correct your ballot. You may receive up to 2 replacement ballots. Receive an explanation if your residency or identity is in question. You can prove your residency or identity by signing a voter's affidavit. vote by absentee ballot, and you can report illegal or fraudulent activity to an election officer or the Secretary of State's office. When we vote in mainstream elections, we are performing a function that all groups, including our ancestors, have done over the course of time. We are participating in how we are governed. While it's important for us to remain active in our tribal governments, it's also important to exercise our rights as citizens of the nation. Our dual citizenship is a very high honor. Voting is more than symbolic. It's more than shooting an arrow or touching a plow. It's the real thing. When you add them up, our votes count just the same as anyone else's. Nobody but you can speak for you.
As a tribal voter, you count. Take time to voice your vote on Election Day.